10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. We have ignition.
Hey everybody, and welcome back to Kerbal Space Program RP0. We are starting this episode off with our Mars surface base, the M97 installation. Now that it is fully crewed and has lots of science things to work with, we're going to start trying to transmit some of this home, and we'll just kind of hang out with them for a little bit. Now, we did get a successful radio in that time, and then, we'll advance time again and try to start doing it again, but this is where things got, well, kind of weird. We ended up having very consistent failures with remote tech, not giving us credit for the science that we were radioing in. If you pay attention to this very, very, very long upload that, it took a lot of time, basically, and then it didn't even give us credit for it. Basically, what we were able to figure out was that the very first radio in or broadcast home performed in the game would work. Any subsequent ones after that would fail out and not actually work and not give us the science credit or like the payout credit for it, which was super irritating because we basically just have all this science sitting here that we can't transmit back, and because it's in a laboratory we can't really like bring it home either, and because we're pretty late game at this point, there's not a whole lot of contracts for us to do to make money, so a lot of our income is based solely on our ability to radio in science data, and so that's kind of a cornerstone of what we need to have function here. So the decision was made to remove remote tech, and that's how we spent I would say the majority of this live stream was pulling out remote tech, applying some fixes to things, and making sure all our parts were still valid while still maintaining functionality. And eventually, by the end of the stream, we pretty much had it figured out. We were able to consistently radio in data, although unfortunately, we no longer have the joys of using remote tech like signal delay and comms ranges and stuff. Because this is, after all, KSP 1.1.3, where a lot of these new features that we have are not implemented yet. So there's that. And then we came across the new problem of, we're not really fully recharging our batteries during the day. These solar panels, turns out, are really just not quite enough. Almost, but barely. So I think we're able to get something like 100 days out of our 300 projected days that we had supplies for before we started running critically low on battery power. And this is when we started trying to power a bunch of stuff off. Our water remaining was the least available resource because apparently our water recycler is not quite working or like at all, which is kind of a problem, although it does use energy. It doesn't recycle any water, or at least not enough water to really make a difference. So as you can see, our battery's starting to slowly dwindle down here as we are about to come into nighttime. The decision was made to evacuate the station, very, very unfortunately. So we will have our engineer truck on out to the rover and bunk their head into it before getting it prepped, firing it up, and then wheeling it back somewhere closer where we can get the rest of our crew off of this station and then back to the ascent vehicle. We have already topped off the life support contained on this rover. It does have about a 2-day range, give or take, which is a whole lot of kilometers, turns out. So now there's just a quest to find our final Kerbal. There they are, and get them over to our new super awesome rover, and then make the very, very long trip back to our ascent vehicle, which luckily for you we're just gonna skip past because, well, it's just easier that way. And so, with our crew having arrived at the rover and collecting the bits of science that they gathered along the way, we're just going to check to see how much time we have. And it turns out that amount is 0. We are actually directly under the flight path of Harmonia Station currently, so we need to, get the let out and get this crew aboard this ascent vehicle and get them on their way just as quickly as possible. Now, if any of you remember the landing from, I don't know, 2 episodes ago, God, it's been so long, we were a little burn happy on our way down. So we don't have any fuel left in the undercarriage, but we do still have the primary fuel is mostly intact. We did use a little bit of it. We're only shy just a few meters per second of what we would like to see. And yeah, we took too long, and now we are not underneath the orbital path anymore. But with the electric charge being what it is and the life support situation on this thing also being what it is, we just kind of have to go. So we will jettison the undercarriage, probably. That was not what happened there. That was firing off of a decoupler. We're going to do that to save weight. We'll light up our twin RL-10s and then start to make a push for orbit. Now, we're just a little bit heavier than I think we really want to be, and we're off plane, so we're going to try to go north and then dogleg it. Now, unfortunately, this was just kind of a bad idea. I should have just launched into an orbit and then tried to make a plane change correction somewhat later on. Our TWR is not really up the task. At this particular moment. I did not think Kerbals weighed this much. I think all of our testing was done with just a single Kerbal on board, not a full complement of 4. But, here they are, making progress as our TWR does finally build up. I think I actually just started the gravity turn way too soon. I needed to get up to speed before starting to lean into it, and I just didn't. And especially now that we're coming up on the moment when we have to dogleg it pretty dang hard, and the fact that our delta V is painfully close to margin means that I'm going to start settling back towards the prograde vector, because I would rather be in a safe orbit that is way off plane than not make it to orbit at all and crash within plane. So the decision was made that now we kind of just have to gun it at this point. Our apogee is almost out of the atmosphere. And so we really we need to make sure that this last 1400 meters per second of delta V that we have goes into pushing us into orbit. So with our apoapsis outside of the atmosphere, we will plot a node to see how much delta V is going to take us to get to where we need to be. The answer is 973, and we have 1274 remaining. So we can actually gear this up a little bit. I think we're going to try to spend about 996 meters per second to circularize our orbit, which, oh man, it was so close to margin that it really was very uncomfortable. Even using RCS to assist in this ascent process, we came up pretty shy. We just used way too much fuel on the way down. Our tanks for the ascent stage were not full, and we really would have liked them to have been. We would really like to have kept a little bit of fuel in the undercarriage so that we could, lift off with that little bit of fuel and then jettison the undercarriage mid-flight in order to, have more fuel to do this dogleg maneuver that we knew we were going to need. So we're going to plot out how much of a plane changes are actually required. I think we're something like 11.5 degrees off of where we need to be. And we certainly do not have the delta V to do that. We might have had the delta V to get to an orbit where it might have been possible. The good news, however, is that we have available to us a rescue craft. And that is, of course, the old 2-stage reusable lander that we kept around for pretty much no reason. We couldn't get a second basket out to it. It can operate autonomously, and it has room for 4 Kerbals, so that's exactly what we're going to do. It is tanked up and fully fueled. It's got a freshly installed engine from our spare parts bin, and it is, more than capable. I think with all the fuel unlocked, it has something like 5.5 kilometers per second of Delta V available to it. We've only got some of the fuel tanks unlocked, showing 3,440 meters per second available. So that should be more than enough to go rendezvous with the old Ascent, or with the new Ascent stage, provide them backup life support, and of course thrust. There's a very powerful engine that we have attached here, and it has lots of fuel. Fortunately, this does not carry with it any liquid hydrogen, or liquid oxygen, for that matter. You certainly do not want to try to use these storable propellants in anything other than an engine. But anyway, yeah, we will boost its orbit way up at the ascending node, and then make a plane change, and then try to drop back down. And we were hoping we could do this in a single pass. That's not going to happen because I'm bad at so many aspects of this game. But yeah, the plane change maneuver at this altitude is something like 500 meters per second, a far cry from like the kilometer and some change meter per second that it would be if we maintained the same altitude. So we've got most of our fuel unlocked now. I think we're showing 4.2 kilometers per second available to us, and we'll spend 50 meters per second dropping our orbit down to match, and then we'll start cycling through and seeing where we can get an intercept, maybe. And it looks like we can get one in about 14 hours, give or take. Our inclination's still a little bit off, 0.24, and so we'll just try to time warp on ahead and hopefully execute this burn in an appropriate manner and get these 2 craft docked together. Now, this ascent stage has about 2 weeks of life support on board, because it was just kind of intended that the crew would hang out with the descent module attached on the surface for a little while before making their trek out to the surface base. This thing is a whole lot heavier, required a whole lot more fuel. It's not nearly as stripped down and gutted as the version we're trying to go rescue is, which is maybe what got us into this predicament in the first place. Now, of course, the first node was pretty bad, so we're gonna just have to plot a second one and see if we can't get this figured out. It's KSP was being real weird, and anytime the intersect nodes got close together, they suddenly would, snap very far apart, which means our orbit was probably off by a little bit, and we're certainly off on relative inclination, but all the poking and prodding required to do this particular rendezvous was really annoying and super extra time consuming. See, that looks like it should be a pretty good intercept, but no, it's still like 1,000 kilometers apart. I think most of that is actually inclination. We're just gonna kind of have to step through and then maybe give it another pass or two to see if we can't try to get ourselves a new intercept in a couple of orbits. And it looks like in something like another day we might be able to manage one. But yeah, boop boop, there you can see them like not quite lining up, but I think we've decided that it's gonna be kind of close enough, so we'll go ahead and fly right past the node by about 2 minutes, and then make the emergency burn anyway. This is only about 100 meter per second correction, and that really shouldn't take all that much. We don't want to beat on this engine too much. It's rated for about 8 minutes. If it burns all the way through its fuel, it should have, I don't know, about 30 or 40 seconds of available runtime left in it. But this engine can fail, and if it does, it could be a pretty big problem, because then we're basically left using thrusters to try to change inclination of our target spacecraft, while first boosting its orbit, then changing inclination, and then trying to go for a docking and rendezvous without something that can really put some horsepower down is, yeah, not. I've had way too much fun during this particular episode already. I don't need any more of that particular kind of fun. And so now you can see we're just kind of bouncing around on thrusters with a horribly imbalanced spacecraft, trying to work down that separation at closest approach, and we do eventually get it down to about 348 meters. So we're going to try to balance out our fuel load into the central tank as much as possible, just to make our lives a little bit easier. We'll get the node plotted for the rendezvous, which comes out to about 206 meters per second. And then we wait. There is our target finally coming over the horizon, and there she goes, because I hit the wrongiest of wrong buttons. Yeah, all this work only to just time warp right past it. It's nothing but quality here on the Cosmonaut Crash channel. If you're looking for actual legit gameplay, you've come to the wrong place. So now we're just going to go ahead and start accelerating back towards our target, once again reducing that separation at closest approach down to something a little bit more manageable, working down the last kilometer or so. We'll come within 813 meters. I think that's going to be good enough. We've only got 16 meters per second to bleed off. We'll plot a node for that and get ourselves about faced and ready to burn. It looks like we can pretty much walk this off with RCS. We've got a lot of very powerful RCS thrusters, but we will give the engine just a quick tap, because I had become incredibly impatient. A little kick spin around, and once again we'll face the target and start using our thrusters to bring ourselves in. So honestly, finally, we can start to move through this and get ourselves in position for a docking. Now, basically what you're seeing is the result of about 3 live streams at this point. Yeah, there was the one stream where we fixed remote tech by killing it, and then this stream where we're going to do ascent, docking, or ascent and rendezvous, and then there'll be another stream where we do docking and RTB and a few other things, or at least attempt them. So yeah, docking here was bound to be a whole lot of fun, because our thrusters are imbalanced. It's hard to see. I was having a very bad day. Lots of things were just not quite going well, but I did not want to just leave this crew up here and stranded and running kind of low on life support, which at this point they've probably got just a couple of hours left before they run out of breathable air. So yeah, this, you know what to expect when it comes to dockings here, I would assume. Anyway, there's lots of scraped paint and just kind of struggling fighting yourself, but docking eventually does come together. Thank goodness. So yeah, I was right. They are pretty low on life support, so we'll just make sure that we can drain from our other vehicle. It has plenty of life support on board. We'll also transfer over some thruster fuel to our rescued craft, just in case something adverse should happen. They can use RCS thrusters to maneuver that stage around up there and do some other things. We'll also try to balance out our fuel load by getting as much out of the side tanks as possible. I think I tried to balance the thruster placement here with these 2 side tanks completely empty, figuring that's how they would be when we actually got back to Harmonia Station. So with that all done, we'll take a very brief break. Now that brief break is over, it is time to get this crew back to Harmonia Station, where they can actually have lots and lots of life support supplies. and there is an engine ignition to increase our apoapsis so that we can start to plot our nodes to do, plane change maneuver and then rendezvous. And yeah, we have sound now because I actually remembered to hit record and get this locally instead of having to download the file from Twitch from the live stream to get some audio here. So we'll just make sure our panels are in the sun, and then we're gonna slowly drive down our separations at closest approach to 120 meters. It'll take 200 meters per second of braking to get anything done. We got 1,400 left, so we're actually doing really good on fuel, which is just awesome. Boom, and we flew right past it because I missed it yet again. I'm on just the biggest, winningest streak ever. So once again, taking a little bit of effort to try to balance out our fuel load because, well, we're going to get back to the station, but only in about 12 minutes time, and we're close enough now where we can't use physics warp because it will distort where everything is. Yep, you can see it kind of bouncing around there, and we'll use a lot of thruster fuel doing this ridiculous SAS wiggle. Yeah, look at that. Whee! And of course, that wiggle will start to throw things off. Now, things are going to get a little interesting. We've topped off the life support, so the crew has plenty of supplies to breathe. We're going to separate the two spacecraft so that we can try to dock the crew with the station in hopes that they'll be able to, use the airlock and, things can be relatively normal for once in this stupid mission, but the thruster imbalance causing a forward motion on any kind of rotation, yeah, and the fact that the thrusters handling that are particularly powerful really kind of messed things up. So we're just going to deactivate those thrusters and ram the space station quite inadvertently because, well, yeah, some of our other thrusters are just kind of causing all kinds of problems here. So we'll try to bring ourselves around and get somewhat lined up. Yep, nope. And then, yeah, this, I think, was all just going very, very badly. I walked away at some point and things got nudged. That's what I'm going to claim happened, and it's my story. I'm sticking to it. So I made a very earnest attempt to try to get things lined up here. But yeah, thruster balance, it matters a lot, it turns out. And if you don't get it kind of right, or if you have things off axis or cross axis like we have here, even simple motions can have unwanted related motions. And then once you start tapping your space station and it starts spinning out of control, then, well, things get much more difficult. So we decided to see, is old school MechJeb going to do any better? Here's your answer. We almost took out a solar panel before deciding, no, MechJeb, you are not up to this task. As a matter of fact, we're going to fire you, and we are just going to EVA the entire crew across after grabbing their payload of scientific data and get them all back into the station nice, safe, and sound. And so with our first Kerbal across, we will very quickly follow with the other three, just making sure that we bring all of that stuff that we worked so hard to cultivate there on the surface of Mars, and making sure that we're putting them all in different modules, so just in case there are any duplicates, that we can retain them and keep our flow of science/money coming. So with that crew safely stowed aboard the station, we will light the engines on our ascent stages, both of them, to deorbit them and bid them both a fond farewell. Moving along yet again, we will be jumping into the VAB for just a little bit, as we've got, well, some kind of construction-y related projects to tend to. The first of which is preparing yet another Chestnut Block 1M for departure to Mars. We're going to try to cycle out the crew there at Mars next window, so I just want to make sure that this thing is the latest and greatest, you could say. Make sure we have both of our docking ports, seeing what's in our cargo container, drills, bombs, and winches. What more could a spacefaring crew ever need in their parts bin? Besides, I mean, bombs and drills. Really, now it looks like we're gonna scrap at least our explosive load. We'll keep the tools. I don't think we have any modifications to do this round. Thank goodness, because I mean, KIS is a really cool mod, but it gets super tedious sometimes. So I'm just, you know, kind of grateful we can just run a vanilla mission this time. Changing gears ever so slightly yet again. Well, not really changing gears because we're kind of gearing up for our Mars window launches. We obviously are going to need another lander, another descent ascent stage, and while in viewing all this footage in post, I probably should have made a few tweaks, but you know, everyone lived, so it's up to spec. Throw it on the line. And there's everything we have. Now we have our Mark II supply crawler also being rolled out to the launch pad, or rather prepped for launch, I should say, because, well, we don't get to send a crew down to our Mars surface base unless we get that second supply crawler with its solar panels and extra life support and everything like that into position first. So to make our very rushed Mars window, we will be rush building the hell out of all of these things. I think we got to get stuff ready in like 30 some odd days, give or take, which is going to be, or maybe it's 100 days. It's going to be super tight. So we're actually going to spend some money on upgrade points, something that we've not had to do in a very, very, very long time. Because the cost for rush building is like, I don't know, 5 or 6 or 7 upgrade points total, but only applies to one vehicle, where an upgrade point applies to all of them. Yeah, we were strategizing. We were being super strategical, and I felt extra smart, although we still rush built the hell out of everything. That's 85,000 per rush build on that project. Anyway, changing gears for realsies this time, we're going to go check in on our new Venus origami glider. Round 2 for Venus this time. It's in a highly eccentric orbit, but it's got some good lines here. We were thinking about trying to circularize this out just a little bit, making a braking pass. We have 851 meters per second left in our carrier stage, which we do plan on abandoning, or deorbiting with the payload, I guess is the proper way to put this. That was at least the initial plan. The initial plan got changed. So here's our first braking pass for like 800 some odd meters per second. We'll be physics warping through most of that, and I think that caused a few issues, but we were able to lower our orbit into something that's a little more respectable. So we'll come out here to our periapsis and make it suborbital, because that's how you deliver this payload. I have run this mission before, and I guess you can tell by the disparagement in my voice that something here was probably not going to go very well. So we will dial down our periapsis to about 90 some odd kilometers, 89 point whatever the hell, and then start to get things ready for deorbiting, including making sure our electric charge is turned on. And then this is where I deviated from the nominal mission procedure, although it turns out it ain't gonna matter so much. So we decided to keep this in place as a comms relay. So we'd fire up the RCS, point at prograde, and try to get it just above the atmosphere. A quick tap on the engine there does the job quite well. So with our payload now entering Venus's atmosphere at very high rate of speed, disaster. It turns out the wings have burned off from within the fairing. Thank you, KSP, for being alarmingly consistent with your heat model all the time. It really gives me hope all the time. Yeah. So that's what happened there. We did collect some science. We'll jettison the fairing and separate stuff, but we have no wings to deploy and no way to really regain this stability. So we'll just, corkscrew fall until the atmosphere, starts to thicken up just a little bit, and doesn't really do us a whole lot of favors because we cannot maintain any kind of authority here. The wing sections that normally fold out and allow us to actually fly have exploded. And only those two, like the critical ones. So we will just, tumble and fall dizzyingly. Sorry, now that I'm watching this in post, I see exactly how bad it is until we hit atmosphere, and then the whole thing just breaks apart. It's a glorious day for the CCSA. What can I tell you? At least this one part is falling slow enough, and maybe will bring about enough of a spin to soft touchdown. Wouldn't that be nice? The answer is no. That does not happen. That nose cone is pretty much all battery, so this thing probably would have lasted a couple of weeks. But without, no real science to be gained here. So I'm not going to make you watch this painful death. It's been painful enough as it is. So that's going to do it for this episode, everyone. Thank you so much for hanging out. I really do appreciate it. And I will see all of you in the next one. So until then, see you later.